Hey everyone, welcome to UK Media Warrior. Today I'm going to be reviewing Star Trek Beyond. Saw it this weekend, opening weekend, and it is pretty good. It is very, very good. I'm a big Star Trek fan, always have been. Saw the original when I was a kid. Captain Kirk, Spock, McCoy got me on board, and I've loved every reiteration of Star Trek universe since. Next Generation, DS9, Voyager, the films, or some of the films are a bit iffy. Enterprise, yeah, I could take it or leave it. For some reason, it just didn't grab me. But it was okay, and it was coming into its strengths just when they cancelled it, as is normally what happens with TV series. But Star Trek Beyond is the third of the new reboot, J.J. Abrams reboot universe for Star Trek, and without doubt, it's the best of the three so far. I've not been that impressed with the first two. I've been on record as saying that basically they're just big, flashy CGI explosions, fights, effect-filled films, which is what the younger audience these days seems to want. There's not really much depth in the story. The characters are pretty shallow and two-dimensional in places. They were okay for what they were. I mean, I think the first one was the worst as far as I'm concerned. I actually liked Into Darkness, although a lot of people hated Benedict Cumberbatch's take on Khan. I think it actually worked for today. You know, back when Khan first appeared in the original series, Ricardo Montalban played him at the time, and it struck a nerve back then with that audience. And in The Wrath of Khan, Ricardo came back and played Khan again. And again, it struck a nerve, and to my mind at least, I hold The Wrath of Khan up as perhaps the best Star Trek film ever made. But Benedict Cumberbatch was the Khan that we needed for today's audiences. It was a political thriller, almost along the lines of Winter Soldier, I suppose, to a degree, as much as it was an action sci-fi thriller. So, yeah, this one, Star Trek Beyond, co-written by Simon Pegg, who is a huge nerd, as he would probably proudly proclaim to the heavens, is a huge Star Trek fan, and I love Simon Pegg. He's absolutely fantastic. I've loved him since I saw him in his television series Spaced, and if you've never seen it, and you're a nerd, a sci-fi nerd, fancy nerd, whatever, please watch it. You'll love it. But he's done well for himself, and he's co-wrote this one. And they really couldn't have put it in better hands, you know, than a Star Trek geek. There was rumours that Jonathan Frakes was in the frame to direct this. Obviously, Riker from The Next Generation. Frakes has now become quite a renowned director. But in the end, it went over to Justin Lin. Now, Justin Lin is best known for his Fast and Furious movies. I think he did 3 through 6. So there were some concerns that he would bring the same sort of shallow plot but fast, flashy, colourful action sequences that you get in the Fast and the Furious over to Star Trek. Luckily, as I said, Simon Pegg's script made that not happen. Yes, we get the action sequences are fantastic, they're fast, they're well directed, they're edited perfectly, but the script carries as much weight and it's as well acted as perhaps any Star Trek film ever. So Justin Lin and Simon Pegg together make a perfect mixture. Did the film have its issues? Yeah, I mean, it's tricky for me because, as I say, as a lifelong Star Trek fan, I have been all my life. I'm 46 years old now, so I've been a Star Trek fan all of my life. So I'm carrying a lot of Star Trek baggage with me. I watch anything new that's Star Trek with the original series, Next Generation, DS9, Voyager, all in my head, colouring what I'm seeing on the screen in front of me. So it's very, very hard to turn that off, although I do try and do so when I see these new films, otherwise I can't review them neutrally. But Simon Pegg, being a Star Trek nerd, there are a couple of things in the plot which I felt were a bit weak. Just a couple of things which didn't quite make sense after I'd thought about it later. Basically, this film starts off with Kirk and the Enterprise 3 years into their initial 5-year mission. Now, they're stopping over at Starbase Yorktown for refit, resupply, get a bit of R&R in, a bit of shore leave. And the first 5 minutes of the film, first 5-10 minutes of the film, is Kirk basically saying in his captain's log and talking to Bones and saying how, you know, he's not sure whether being a captain is really what he wants to be, and supposedly has applied for a vice admiral's position aboard the Yorktown Starbase. Now, this is 3 years into the initial 5-year mission of the film, 5-year mission of the Enterprise. So before he set off on that 5-year mission, he wanted nothing more than to be a captain of the Enterprise, captain of anything, but to be a starship captain. James T. Kirk, whether it's in this new split-off reality universe or in the original universe, lived to be a starship captain his entire life. When he was made up to Admiral in the original series and the original films, he hated it. He hated flying a desk, but he thought he had no recourse. He was offered the Admiral's position. He could hardly turn it down, you know. So he became an Admiral, and he did everything he could to get back on the starship. And eventually, after the voyage home, he gets demoted to starship captain, and he is given the Enterprise, and he feels born again. That's his life. That's what he was destined to be, a starship captain. That's where he should be, and that's where he enjoys being the most. Now, that is a huge part of James T. Kirk's character, always has been. But in this new film, Star Trek Beyond, he's only 3 years into his first 5-year mission, and already he's second-guessing the job. No, you know, do I really want to be a starship captain? Ugh, I'm just stuck on this ship all the time, you know, with these people, and everyone's got these relationship problems, and, you know, I don't know. And there's all this it just like, for someone like me, who knows Kirk so well, this isn't Kirk. Okay, he shouldn't, 3 years into his first 5-year mission, 3 years into becoming a starship captain, he shouldn't be second guessing and saying, I want out of this is a terrible job, what the hell was I doing? You know, James T. Kirk lived to be a starship captain. So that rubbed me the wrong way. Secondly, how can a guy who basically left the academy, did the first Star Trek film where he fought the Romulans, got given the Enterprise, a few months later he fought Khan, then gets sent on his first 5-year mission? So basically, since he took command of the Enterprise and got promoted to captain, it's probably been about 4 years, maybe 5 years, but roughly 4 years. And already he's being considered for a Vice Admiralty position? Wow, the promotion ladder in Star Trek is fast. You know, whew. But anyway, Yorktown is on the edge of this unknown, uncharted nebula. And at the beginning of the film, this life pod comes floating out of the thing. It's got this alien and says, oh, my ship crashed in the nebula, please can somebody come and find me and help me? And Kirk and the Enterprise go in. Now, before this happened, at the start of the film, Kirk is on a diplomatic mission between 2 alien races trying to bring peace to them. And one alien race has given him this part of this supposedly ancient weapon, an artifact, to give to the other alien race as a sign of peace, as a gift. That doesn't work out too well. He ends up storing it on the Enterprise, logging all the information on the computer, and leaving it at that. The Enterprise goes into this nebula to help this person, ends up being attacked by this swarm of alien spaceships which cut the Enterprise to pieces, literally. The Enterprise crashes, the saucer separates and crashes on this planet in almost a scene-by-scene imitation of Star Trek Generations, where Troy pilots the saucer section into the planet. Remember that? If you've seen Star Trek Generations, you'll know what I mean. But when the saucer section hits the planet in Generations, it's almost exactly the same as the scene you see in this new film, Star Trek Beyond, where the saucer section hits the planet. So, you know, kudos to Simon Pegg for including these little Star Trek Easter eggs for us fans. But his crew, the remaining crew anyway, are all caught by the bad guy played by Idris Elba. Idris Elba plays the bad guy. Sorry, blanked for a minute there. But in prosthetics, it's hard to tell it's him, but his voice is that of Idris Elba's. So he plays the bad guy called Kral, and he has the ability to take the life force out of people and renew himself. So basically he could be immortal as long as he's got people around to drain the life force out. So a bit like a vampire, I suppose. But then it's left to Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Scotty to save the day. And they find this alien scavenger on the planet, played by, what was her name? Sofia Boutella, who you may remember from Kingsman. She played the assassin girl who had the blades on her feet. Same actress, and she's absolutely fantastic in this film. She really is. She's great, and she teams up with, as I say, the gang to go and save the rest of the crew and stop the bad guy. It turns out that this bad guy wanted to attack the Enterprise so he could get hold of that artifact that I mentioned, because that's part of an ancient weapon that supposedly originated from this planet inside this unknown nebula, this uncharted nebula. So he manages to get the artifact, puts the weapon together, and it turns out that it's like this swarm of black things that can take a person out within seconds, just sort of like disintegrates them, and then gets sucked back into this disc. It doesn't sound very intimidating, really. I mean, Idris Elba, as Kral, he describes this weapon as, oh, the ancient people who lived on this planet created this weapon that was so powerful, it was too powerful for them to handle, so they split it in half and sent the pieces out into space to be hidden. I'm thinking, really? It's that powerful? This small black swarm that's on a disc that's about the size of a frisbee, that Kral can handle perfectly easily by just turning the disc, and he can control whether it goes out, comes back, or whatever. And it's all powerful, and they couldn't handle it, and they had to separate it. Yeah, that's not very intimidating, really. Not really. So there's that, and also my major nag on this film, and it could just be me. I could be totally wrong on this. But the way they escape the planet after Kral leaves with this weapon to attack the starbase, Yorktown starbase, they find an old Starfleet vessel. Now, I was mentioning Star Trek Enterprise earlier, the TV series that got cancelled before its time. Okay, if you watch that, the ship that was on that series, the Enterprise from that series, that ship design, they find one of those ships on this planet, crashed. Supposedly it's been there, according to Scotty, over 100 years. And yet somehow, without the use of a starbase, without the use of a shipyard or any heavy machinery at all, Scotty manages to get this ship operable. Now remember, it crashed. Okay, when they start it up, the nacelles are under a load of rock, which vibrates the rock off. That's how you know it's buried underneath this rock that probably fell on it. Add to that, at one point, Jayla, the character played by Sofia Boutella, leads them up onto the top of the hull of this spaceship to show them that she's put up these devices which make the spaceship invisible. But as she pushes the hatch up, you see that it's all rusted inside around the edges. Okay, it's been there 100 years. So this spaceship, this starship that's been buried that crashed on this planet to start with, was buried under rock, has been there 100 years for all the environmental decay that would have caused. Scotty gets it flying inside of a day, pretty much. They managed to lift off because the engines are still working fine, the dilithium crystals are working fine, still got enough power in it. So they managed to lift off, get into space, so the ship is still space-worthy, despite the fact there was rust on that top hatch, remember? And the rocks having crushed the back end of it. All that aside, it's space-worthy enough to get into space, and they also take it into battle. So it's also got weapons still working. What an amazing piece of luck that they found this ship and it survived so well over 100 years. But to make it even better, we find out at the end of the film that the bad guy, Krull, Idris Elba's character, was actually the original captain of this ship that they found. So he knew it was there all the time, because he was on it when it crashed. So, first off, why didn't he do anything with the ship? Why didn't he keep it? If it was so easy to repair that Scotty could do it in under a day, why didn't he keep it working? Why did he leave it buried under these rocks? What happened to his crew? Supposedly he had 80 plus crew members on this ship after it had crashed that were alive with him. What happened to them? That's never explained. He explains that he's found this alien technology that can keep him alive forever. But did that mean he keeps all of his crew alive forever? Did he have to feed off of his crew to keep himself alive? If so, why did they let him do that? There was 80 of them, they could have easily killed him. So these inconsistencies just add up if you give it enough thought, which unfortunately it drives my wife mad, but I do. I don't like sloppy plot holes, sloppy writing. And to be fair to Simon Pegg, this is a fantastic script. It really does. It holds up well. I am nitpicking, but there are these inconsistencies, a couple of them quite huge inconsistencies, which I'm surprised that Simon let go. He's normally a lot tighter than this with his writing. But the last inconsistency is the York base, the Yorktown starbase that was built on the edge of the nebula. This is an uncharted nebula, and it would have taken months, if not years, to build this huge starbase. Nobody explored the nebula. Why would you build a starbase, a brand new starbase, put all this time, effort, material into building a starbase on the edge of a nebula? You don't know what's inside of it. It's uncharted, as is mentioned several times. Anything could be living in there. And during all the months and years of you building it, no one went in to explore it? Well, it doesn't make sense. And when the Enterprise first sees the Yorktown starbase and everyone's like, oh, it's so big, it's beautiful, it's fantastic. Someone says, well, why didn't they build it on the planet? I think it's Kirk or Spock or one of them who explains, well, if they did that, it would be giving that planet more impetus, more power in the Federation. As the Federation is a conglomeration of planets, all supposedly equal. To put a starbase on the planet of one of them would make everybody else perhaps think that planet's got higher meaning. You know what I mean? Authority. So instead, they built it in orbit around the planet. Isn't that the same thing? Building it on the planet, building it in orbit around the planet. Surely it's exactly the same thing. It's still going to make other people think, well, they built a starbase around their planet, why didn't they build one around mine? If that's the worry they had, build it in deep space. They did that in the original series. They had starbases floating at its fixed point in space, in deep space, for ships to go to refit and resupply. They didn't have to put it in orbit around this particular planet if they were worried that it was going to cause problems with the Federation Council. But anyway, Greg Grunberg turns up in this one as a guy in charge of Yorktown's defences. I'm assuming he's like the captain of the Yorktown. Even though it's a starbase, he seems to be the guy that's in charge of the weapons and checking ships in the area and that sort of thing. And obviously, as is the power of J.J. Abrams, he gets a role in this film. But I like Greg Grunberg, so that's fair enough. I don't mind seeing him on the screen. And the acting throughout from the regulars, Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, as I say, Simon Pegg has come back as Scotty. Carl Urban is absolutely fantastic in this film as McCoy. He is really channeling DeForest Kelly on this, and he is the perfect Bones. And I honestly couldn't think of anyone else better to play him. I've always liked Carl Urban. He's a very underrated actor. He's excellent, and he nails it in this. John Cho's back as Sulu, playing the now officially gay Sulu, who has a daughter. Despite the fact George Takei didn't want Sulu to be gay, everyone has ignored him and done it anyway. And Anton Yelchin is obviously back as Chekhov, his final role before his untimely death. And you do watch him knowing, obviously, that the poor guy has now passed away, and you do see him on the screen. You can't help but feel a bit heavy-hearted watching him, because he's so good as Chekhov. And it'd be a shame not to see him come back for the other films, but he was taken before his time, and it's terrible that these accidents happen to some of the most promising actors, up-and-coming actors we have. Zoe Saldana is back as Uhura, still having relationship problems with Spock. I'm never going to forgive them for getting Spock and Uhura together. Spock is far too emotional in these new films, and I just don't understand why they did it. Did they think that making him coldly logical would just turn people off? Well, Leonard Nimoy managed to win thousands, millions of fans over to the cold, logical Spock over the years, just showing the smallest little glimmer of himself fighting the emotions that are inside him because he wanted to be a truly Vulcan character. And yet in this one, they've given Zachary Quinto the role, and he's smooching Uhura in the turbo lift in the first film, and now they're having relationship issues, and they're split, and then they're getting back together again, and he's actually laughing in this film at one point. It is... this Spock doesn't do it for me, unfortunately. I love Zachary Quinto, and he does his best. And when he's in full Spock mode, coldly logical, the Spock character we all love, he is fantastic. It's just when I see him showing emotions that it just nags me, it annoys me. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. The best of the 3 reboot films at the moment. Fantastic cast, fantastic acting, great writing, few inconsistencies, but I'll let that go. Because, as I say, this is one of the best of the new reboot films, and hopefully, if they keep allowing Simon Pegg to write these scripts, or at least co-write these scripts, it will go from strength to strength. So that's it. Go and watch it. It's well worth it. If you're a Star Trek fan in any shape or form, you're going to love it. But go and see it. I've already spoiled the majority of the film, so this is really neither here nor there, but at the end of the film, Kirk decides to turn down the Vice Admiralty position that he is offered because he's decided that it will be better to stay on as a captain, because he's decided that's what he wants to do. So don't worry, he isn't going to be promoted off the ship, as if you would be worried about that, because obviously it's not going to happen. They've got more Star Trek films coming. But anyway, you guys take care. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this review, please... share it on your Facebook and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You guys take care, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now.